Hello, everybody, and welcome back to OMB Reviews. I am the critic who is a cynic. How is everyone doing this evening? Happy and blessed Monday, and welcome to episode 537 of the Welcome to Asgard podcast on this, the feast of the baptism of our Lord, and in the modern calendar, the feast of St. Hilary of Poitiers, where tonight we're going to be talking about the debate that is currently waging in the comment section of my most recent box office breakdown about Sonic 3. Is it a massive success? Is it doing okay and decently fine? Or is it ultimately disappointing in many ways? Obviously, I hold that middle position where I think the movie's doing fine. It's building on the previous audience. It's going to end at the highest level that any Sonic film has ever done. But I also do think that there is a lot of money being left on the table for a franchise like this, and that the movie's money is not really as good as some people are trying to indicate. I think there's just been a lot of videos put forward and a lot of comments put forward about how well the film is doing, and again, the film is doing just fine for a movie of its kind in comparison to the other films from the franchise, but I think that there are still a lot of things that are not really being discussed, and especially when a lot of the discussion about Sonic's box office is also at the same time being done in conjunction with a conversation about the box office for films like Mufasa and others. Moana 2 also in that discussion as well. I think it's important to be honest and frank about all of the numbers. And all the films that I've just mentioned, by the way, are films that I did not really enjoy all that much. I think that Mufasa is by far the worst of the bunch. Moana 2 is lifeless and ultimately a film I never plan to watch ever again. And Sonic 3 is yet another Sonic film that I just do not care all that much for. I appreciate the fact that fans of the franchise are very happy with it. Fans of the games are very happy with it. And a lot of kids are happy with it. But I am not of that audience that it is clearly reaching out towards. And so I think I can look at it from a bit more of an objective lens. And that's why I've been saying for now a long time, yes, the movie's doing just fine, but it's really not doing a whole lot in comparison to some other franchises that we've seen, including one rated R franchise that somehow has brought in more audience. And I think that that comparison should hopefully bring into perspective the argument that I'm trying to make, which is that, yes, the film is doing great. The franchise is doing great. The franchise has indeed made $1 billion in 3 movies. But what standards are we holding this to? Are we holding other films and other series to the same standard, and what does it all mean? We'll talk about all of those things tonight. And also, of course, the Raven Award nominations are still going on, so please be sure to submit your nominations. They will be closing up very soon, probably within the next few days. There are still a couple of pretty close races, a couple of categories where we might have less than 5 nominees, but I do appreciate everyone who has put the nominations forward so far. I posted that link just a couple of minutes ago in the chat, so please make sure to do that. Also, make sure you smash that like button, loud that fire button over on Odyssey, and smash the rumble button as well. And let's go ahead and say hello to the people who are hanging out in the chat today. Starting off at 7 o'clock, it was Mrs. Wingster, who once again became a Citizen of Asgard member. Mrs. Wingster, appreciate you. Going on to say, figured I'd send this as I can't watch tonight. Good hunting, lads. Dang, Mrs. Wingster, abandoning us. That does not seem like the very Wingster thing to do. Well, knowing Mrs. Wingster and our pet troll, of course, the aforementioned formerly known as General Wingster, Mr. Wingster, whatever it might be, he sometimes will come back even when he says that he's not. So we'll see what happens with that. We got Snortapoopus Cuber. Hello, homan that other quitteth. What's going on, Snortapoopeth? Thanks for being here, good sir. He saith also, hello, Snortapoopeth. Welcome back. Wendy Hunter's in the chat. Wendy! Both Snortapoopus and Wendy are both members here on the channel. So Wendy, thank you for being a member and putting at Odin saying hello to everyone. Hello to you. We got Jeremy Zakowski tagging us, say, evening, Odin, everyone on here. Good evening to you, Jeremy Zakowski. Kimberly G. Killian, Shadowcat, howdy all. We're finally recovering from the blizzard, but we're supposed to get more next week. Yeah, I've been watching some of the Ryan Hall y'all coverage, and I think that he's probably one of the more even-toned personalities in that YouTube meteorologist space, and so that's why I appreciate him and respect his views on a lot of things. And what I know, at least from what his coverage has shown, is we really don't know exactly what's going to happen next week. And he says, ultimately, look for about 3 to 4 days out in your forecasting to get a much better, more accurate take. Kind of connected in some ways to the box office, right? Where I say, hey, you got to wait at least 2 weeks global box office to actually start to make some realistic projections, get a better idea. But obviously, the further out from that initial release you get, the more accurate information you get as well. Seems like weather forecasting is in a very similar vein. All puns intended. We got Keely Chow hanging out. What is going on, Keely Chow? By the way, Kimberly G, thank you for being here. I'm looking forward to it, though. I love the cold weather. I really hope that we get some more snow. I'm actually amazed that there's as much snow still on the ground, even after the initial snowfall back on Friday, because it's gotten warm enough, right, for a lot of it to melt off the last couple of days. But we still have some on our back porch of all places. So even today we were able to pack some ice in and bring some inside. My son's been loving it. He's been having a ton of fun with it. And yeah, the prospects of next week there being another bit of snow, that'd be awesome, especially since we're already scheduled to be off for MLK. So it'd be really cool to have a snow day on that Sunday or on that Monday, because then we don't have to worry about missing another day of school, because it's one snow day is really, really good. Another one this close to the other one, meaning the potential for there to be other interruptions, whether it be snow or ice, whatever it might be, because that has happened obviously in our part of the world, our part of the country before. Those are problems that can ultimately lead to losing days on future holidays. And I know that I would much rather get the full week off for spring break, the full Easter holiday myself. The kids, of course, are the mindset of, why can't we just have it all? Because that's not how the world works, kids. As much as you would like it to. Oh, man. Let's see. Keely Chow saying, how are you, Thor, Freya, and Baby Sif doing? Everyone is doing well. Baby Thor, Thor has been really enjoying the snow, playing with the ice. Baby Sif has enjoyed it to a certain extent. She'll throw a snowball, which is just her dropping it, and it's hilarious. And then she also likes eating the snow as well. Obviously, we try to find the cleanest patches before we let her have anything, and obviously we don't let her have it too much, but that's been really, really cool to see. Last time there was actually snow, it was last year, right? Back in 2024, there was a little bit of snow, but not nearly enough to make a huge difference. We were able to do some stuff. My son had a lot of fun with it when it did happen, but this one was this was the biggest snowfall I've ever seen in this area. So since we moved up here back in 2019, kind of crazy that we've been up here this long. We had gotten a snowfall early 2020. And that one was actually a pretty cool one because we got a lot of snow initially, a lot of coverage, could do a lot of stuff with it, even build a little snow family. But then because of the temperature, it ended up all melting by midday. It started just, it was kind of just amazing to see the difference and change. This one was different because we had the snow starting 7 or 7:30 in the morning, and then it just kept going and going and going, and then reached its peak coverage around maybe 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. When it finally switched over to a wintry mix. And so it was just gorgeous, though. Everything was covered white. The streets were covered in snow. I'd never seen it that covered before anywhere I've ever lived, with the one exception, of course, being New York. I lived in New York, graduated college back in 2011, and whatever the blizzard was in that time frame, so from about 2007-ish to 2011, I was up there for that blizzard, and that was the most snow I had ever seen in my life. And it was really cool just to be living, though, in a place where I could experience it. All right, Jimmy A. Hello, everyone. Hello to you, Jimmy A. Thanks for being a member here on the channel. Always appreciate it. It's good, sir. Forever Sci-Fi, who's also a member. Hail to you. We got the man with the orange hat, who is a mod here, saying, I'm lurking. Do not misbehave, or he will lay down his mighty axe. Indeed, he will. Jess Pena saying, ahoy. Ahoy to you. Sorry, I got to crack my back. My back's been sore. G-Monkey76, what's going on? We also got Mr. Roy. Hello. What's going on, Mr. Roy? Glad to have you here, good sir. By the way, I just picked up, anytime I think about Mr. Roy, I think about physical media because we're both major collectors. And this is one that I'm very excited for because it is one, shout out to Geek True 64 because I think he was the one that mentioned this one. If not him specifically, it was his channel that got me on a string of physical media videos to watch. But this release from Lionsgate, of all places, Lionsgate has had terrible theatrical releases, but they're still one of the best in the game when it comes to physical media as far as the actual physical packaging and all that stuff. But the 50th anniversary edition of The Conversation by Francis Ford Coppola I love this set. It's so cool. It comes with a 4K Steelbook set. I got 2 copies of it. 1 copy will be a giveaway, not here live on the channel, but for my giveaways channel over on Discord for all members at the Keeper of the Bifrost level and above. So if you want access to this or other future giveaways, go check that out. And again, always love giving those things away. And then one that's currently, I have not picked a winner yet, but I will be picking one soon. That's currently live, a giveaway on the giveaways channel, Street Fighter on Steelbook. This is also one recommended by him, and I love it. I love it. It's just so awesome to look at. And fun fact, I've actually never seen Street Fighter, so it also gives me a good reason to to watch it now that I have it digitized and on my library. I'm very, very excited to check it out. Luke Zilla hanging out. What's going on, Luke Zilla? Thenotas Felicitas saying hello from my basement. Hello, Thenotas. Welcome back. Welcome. Super 746 saying, hey, what is up, my dude? Hey, what's up, my dude? Messed that up. Sorry, it's been such a long time. Yeah, seriously, it's been like forever. And I hope all is well. I'm in Discord and on Critic List, but can't seem to catch any streams anymore. Well, I'm sorry to hear that, Super. Apologies if it's because of the time change, where I changed away from the Tuesday streams. But yeah, every Monday, 7:45 p.m. Eastern Time, that is our new day. Carl Jacobs saying here, at Odin for shill of the year, let's put Odin over the top. Carl Jacobs, okay. Look, normally, I don't like to give a whole lot of information early about these things, but what I will say is this. To nominate me for shill of the year for the Ravens at this point is a fool's errand. It's a waste of a nomination. That's all I'm gonna say. Now, whether that means one thing or the other, that's all I'm going to say, is that it's a waste of a nomination at this point. To put that forward, I think putting over some of the other people who have shilled this year would be good. And yeah, a great question from Jimmy A. What did I shill for? I think some people think I shilled for Civil War. I think that's the one that some people are kind of going after me for. Either that, or they thought because last year Jeremy Griggs from Geeks and Gamers won, and they thought how funny it was that had happened, even though he was actually shilling, right, for the Mario Brothers movie and everything like that. It is still interesting nonetheless that they're going after me. Now they're going after me. We got Shorty Short. What's going on, Laura? Welcome back. Welcome, my Mother Major General. Laura, I had to say, where is my I voted for the Ravens sticker? Man, you know what? I need to make those one year, Laura. I know I've done certain stickers and pins and magnets with Sticker Mule before, but the big problem for me is that I do not know how to design anything, and I'm terrible at like seeking it out. So if there's someone who loves the Ravens and loves everything like that and is a designer of any kind and has like a recommendation for that kind of that kind of thing, I would love to do merch for that. I would love to do stickers. I would love to give those away in like the giveaway, like, when I'm giving away Blu-rays on random streams, just throw that in the packaging and things like that, bring them to meetups, things like that. But I would also love to do other merch for it too, because that'd be fun. But I have no creative ability whatsoever. Gary Banjo Sandwich, time to say, loved Landman. Yeah, I have not finished the last episode of the season. I'm sad it's already over, but also very happy in just how they've structured the show, right? 10 episodes, I think has been like just enough to establish the characters, to bring you on the different journeys of the character arcs. And I'm in episode 10 right now, which also happens to be a very long episode, which I appreciate. Obviously I'm not too crazy about some of the sexual stuff in there. Luckily it's not too much, but it is enough for me to be like, really more of this. I just finished the sequence where they're at the strip club with the old people. I'm like, again, I get why it's funny and stuff, but at the same time, come on now. Anyway, Kincaid and Rumsky, what's better, Sonic 3 or Super Mario? As far as films that I would want to watch again, I really don't like either movie, to be honest. But I think that if my son was a huge fan of both of them, and he got into that mood where he has to watch it like every other day on the weekend, I would probably rather watch Super Mario. I haven't seen it since it came out, though, so I really can't hold to that. So most likely what I would do is I would see which is the shorter movie. I'm just going to be honest. Which one's going to end sooner? And again, it's not because they're bad movies. It's just they're not all that great either. At least for someone who's not a kid and not a fan of the IP, not like a mega fan of the IP. Gary Banjo saying, let's go raving for the Ravens. Boom. Indeed, let your nominations flow. Jimmy A., who is a member here on the channel, saying, I wasn't that impressed with Sonic 3 either. I thought it was okay and entertaining. However, they hyped it up as a dark and serious movie, and it was more childish than the first two. Well, I'll push back a little bit there, Jimmy A., because I think as much as it is indeed more childish than the other two, but more specifically because of the performance by Jim Carrey. Because Jim Carrey goes full Jim Carrey in this movie. And there's a part of me and a part of my soul that always appreciates some Jim Carrey. Like that old school, over-the-top, wacky, physical comedy stuff that I really always appreciate. But I totally understand why anyone would hate it, find it old, find it tired, not find it entertaining. I totally get why people feel that way. Again, subjectively speaking, I just still find it somewhat entertaining, but notice somewhat. There was, I think, too much of it. I think they overdid it. I think it kind of overstayed its welcome. But as well as that silly, childish comedy being there, it was definitely a lot more serious, too. I think the whole storyline, right, with Shadow and the young girl was very serious, right? And that was, I think, much darker, much more serious than I thought it was going to be. Now, could it be overplayed, how dark and how serious it was? I think that there's definitely an argument that could be made there by how people are presenting it. But I would say it's definitely serious. It's definitely the most serious of the three. And I would say probably even by a large margin, is it the most serious? Let's see. Short saying, my local Cinemark is doing $5 surprise movies on Monday. What a fun concept. Yeah, I know that a lot of, the AMC near me has been doing that to a certain extent, not every Monday. But I know that there's like surprise movies that you pay like a general admission ticket for, and you only know the runtime and the rating of it. It's called Screen Unseen, and I've never been able to go because the timing's always terrible. It doesn't help also that my Monday streams are on Monday because it means I can never go to those streams, but to those movies. But I've heard good things. I've heard that there's been some good movies that actually get released early that people get to have early access to. But yeah, it's a very fun concept where you don't know what it's going to be. At the same time, I do like to have some knowledge of what it is, just so the way I know what I'm in for and, things like that. Miss Modern Muses, what's going on? Miss Modern Muses, do appreciate you very, very much. She is, of course, one of my chosen of Valhalla, longtime supporter here on the channel, saying, Mary, it's still Christmas. Yeah, I know that it is, this is where my knowledge dips a bit, because for me, Christmas is obviously Christmas Day is the start of the 12 days of Christmas. You then have the 12 days of Christmas leading to Epiphany. But then for me, it's like at that point now you're in Epiphany season, right? You're in Epiphany tide. And so that's kind of where I am right now, is I'm in Epiphany tide. I definitely can see, though, why, one could argue, I heard, because some people go based off of, if you're following the traditional calendar, you would say like yesterday, Sunday, this past Sunday, the Feast of the Holy Family, that would be the end of the season. And it makes sense, right? You're ending with the actual family of Christ. But I've also heard others where really the Christmas season in earnest, right? If you're combining Epiphany as a part of Christmas, which I think it makes a lot of sense, well, then it would go all the way up until February 2nd, the Feast of the Purification, theoretically. So anyway, Geek264 saying, howdy, mostly lurking today while finishing work. Well, Geek264, thank you for being here, good sir. Keep up the awesome work. Let's see. Cthulhu saying, Odin in chat, good evening, and hope you had a great Monday. I hope you all had a great Monday as well. Physics Channel Kenny Lee saying, hello, Odin, long time. Yeah, good to see you back in the chat. Shorty Short saying, how are your dogs in the snow? Very interesting, Laura. It depends on the day, depends on how they're feeling. This year, for some reason, River just did not have anything to do with it. She would still go down and get her paws wet and step in the snow and stuff and sniff around and then just not do her business, which would drive me nuts because you have to deal with the wet paws and stuff. But overall, she tries to avoid it. Like, we had this one little patch because we have an outer deck where basically everything underneath that outer deck was staying pretty much snow-free. And so we had this very, very small square snow-free zone, and that's where she would basically be sniffing. But because it's such a small zone, she would take forever to try to find the exact right spot. So yeah, I think that in general, they're not the biggest snow dogs in the world. My dog Willow, she on the other hand is very much all about it. Not because she likes it, but because she's just, she loves running. And so the first time that they go out this year for the snow, she's like running laps because she's just like, oh, this is new, this is different. My feet are cold. I don't know what's going on. So yeah, they're a little fun. It is funny though, because normally when we're having to call them back in, sometimes they don't listen. So we got like, a little sound maker where it's like a very high pitched noise and it's able to like get their attention, bring them back. But for this time, actually a couple times I just took snow off of the little mini porch where our stairs are. And I just made like a little snowball, threw it at him. And then that got him right back in. It was funny. I was like, oh, okay. Man, if only I had just snowballs lying around all year. If that's all I had to do to get y'all back in the house, just throw a snowball at you. UAB Mad Dog Mike Jackson, what's going on, good sir? Welcome back. We got Gee. No hi today. No, how you doing? Just, you think Sonic 3 has a chance of hitting $500 million? A chance, yes. Do I think it's a good chance? No. At this point, I don't think it's going to happen. And it really comes down to what the reporting is out of China. And let's just say it's not looking that great for its prospects there. We'll talk about it, though. We'll get into the numbers in a second. Fair Sci-Fi, when you have dogs, there's a chance you build a snowman with a Tootsie Roll in the center. Quite the surprise for anyone smashing them. Oh, interesting. Yes. That would be quite a surprise. We were very careful, though. I basically prepped, actually was happy I was able to prepare for this, because normally my area, we don't know whether we're getting snow or not on any given day. This was the most prepared I think I've ever been for everything snow related. So the day before, made sure to go through the yard, scour the yard, get any and all of those little leftover presents by the puppies. And so that way, once the snow covered it, everything would be good and fine. And then we would get to play without having to worry about any nonsense like that. And sure enough, we were able to do that. And it was a lot of fun. It was a ton of fun. But yes, that's definitely something you always have to be a little careful of. Thanatos Felicita saying, one of the most beautiful things I've seen is the aftermath of an ice storm in western New York, ice covering everything. Yeah, seriously. Orange Chat saying, how did Joe Biden not make NPC of the year list? So Orange Chat, keep in mind, right, that whatever you see is only the short list. That does not mean that they have received an official nomination. I'm trying to update the options as votes are coming in to include any that have more than a couple of votes. So that way people know what the options are, and hopefully with more exposure, more categories, and more people will get nominations for different things. But I think ultimately it's because there's a much bigger focus this year, Orange Chat, on different politicians. So yeah, I don't know why either. He seems to fit that definition. Kevin Wang says, how were you able to solve the bots? I mean, I don't think I really necessarily solved it. If anything, it was temporarily. But basically, what I had to do was I had to shut it down. So I had to turn it offline for a little while, then turn it back on. And then I had to do that like a couple of times. And then finally, it just seemed like that it stopped. Also, just in case anyone's trying to try the nonsense in the future, it's very easy for me to shut it down and then delete all of the nonsense, because when it's the same vote over and over again, it's very easy to spot. And it's a pain, it's an annoyance, but I am able to delete all of the fake votes. So, the man with the orange hat saying, Odin even being a choice in the Ravens is a conflict of interest. and that's why I gave you the most bare information that I can. Ravens won't make the Super Bowl. Nope, not those Ravens, but ours. Ours are essentially the Super Bowl. Thulu, Civil War was interesting at least. What's the voting link, by the way? I posted it a few times, but I will post it again for all of the platforms. So again, I just posted the link if you want to put your nominations forward. And again, there is an other category where if you click other, you can type in your own nomination for any of the categories. Jimmy A saying, really, basically everyone should be nominated for shilling for Sonic 3. I would agree, Jimmy A. I think that there's definitely a lot of that. Guy, will the stickers be free? Depends on where it is. If it's at a meetup, I always try to give those away for free. Much to the chagrin probably of some of my fellow content creators, because I know they, and again, it's because they're doing it for a living, and so they want to make a little extra cash to help pay the bills and things like that. But anytime I go to a meetup, I give those away. yeah, I give those away for free. I have a lot of pins left that I can give away. I have some magnets and some basic stickers. They're all the stickers and the magnets are of the Templar Odin, so my profile picture on Twitter/X, and the pins are of the actual channel logo for OMB Reviews. So I give those away for free. As far as like giving them away, no, that was more of like a joke of, man, it'd be awesome just to give those away, but more of a, if I do giveaways in the future where, over Christmas time, for instance, I had several days where I gave away a lot of movies, putting those in with those packages would be fun. Or if I were able to make them, I don't know if I'll have time to make any before Orlando, if I'm able to go. Right now, things are still looking okay for that, for me to be able to go to that. But having those available for anyone that comes. But no, I'm not going to send out, I'll just be clear, I'm not going to send out stickers for free via mail. I have enough money to support giveaways of movies and media. I would not have the abilities to afford giving those away, as awesome as that would be. So giveaways at, meetups and stuff where I have them, I can give them away. I have no problem doing that. Let's see. Wendy Hunter saying, stickers I assume would be fun. Yeah. That would be cool. Rob D saying, hello, Odin, why is Cynthia Erivo not nominated for NPC of the Year? Hey, don't ask me why someone's not nominated. If you're, hey, why is this person not nominated? Go ahead and vote. Find someone like-minded and say, hey, can you nominate this person? Or, hey, can you fill this out real quick and focus especially on this category? There is a way of getting nominations. Again, we have no official nominations yet. All we have is that short list from the things that were put forward over the course of the year, and all of the ones that have been coming in since. Geek True 64 is saying, thanks for the shout out again. Love that Street Fighter Steelbook. I know it was your recommendation that got me to check that out. Orange Chat saying, dear Lord, I pray that you put Sonic 3 in young Thor's head so he can like it. And to give Odin a little bit of a headache. He. Amen. Yeah. I will say this, Orange Chat. I have a Plex Media server. I've talked about this before. I love it. There was some issues I was having a long time ago, which made me switch over to Jellyfin. Jellyfin, unfortunately, is just not a very good alternative. A little bit too many, especially with the way that the media scanning works. It just caused a lot of problems. And it was a major headache way too often. So I finally went back to Plex like several months ago. And over a recent break, I was able to organize, because I have a profile for me, for my wife, but then I also have one for Thor. And I was finally able to get like all of his movies, all the, his age-appropriate movies, things like that in there. And I will say, I have the Sonic movies in there. He has never showed that much interest in it. He's watched Lego Batman movie, and he thought it was fun. He liked that one a lot. It's the only Lego movie I personally enjoy. I don't like the first or second Lego movie personally. I do really like Lego Batman, though. I think that one was really good. Gee saying, but what games did you play when you were young? I mean, I did play some Sega. I did play. Sega Genesis was like the home system that we had. We were a Game Boy family, a Sega Genesis family for a long time. And then we eventually got an N64, and that's kind of where our family systems ended. My little brother was a huge gamer, so he got like the PS1, PS2, PS3, pretty much every iteration of every single gaming system. It's actually a part of he's a collector, so he collects systems and games and stuff. Has put in a lot of time. I don't know if he's as much of a gamer now that he's obviously a bit older and married and different responsibilities now. But for when I was younger, played a lot of Sega Genesis and a lot of Game Boy. And then once the N64 came around, that was like the primary system that we used. But I would always go back to Genesis every now and then. My favorite game to play on there was Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And it was using the Knuckles expansion. So it was one of those things back in the day when you had the cartridges. You had like the Sonic and Knuckles game. And then if you open the top, which flip open, you could put on top of it like Sonic the Hedgehog 2. And once you did that, you could then play Sonic the Hedgehog 2 as Knuckles. And that was like the big thing that you could do. And it was awesome because, hey, Knuckles can glide and can stick to the wall. And it was cool. That's also why it's hard for me probably to connect to any of the Sonic movies, because especially with the Knuckles stuff, I didn't watch any of the later Knuckles show, or the whatever Sonic shows they may have had, or games that they may have developed later on that had maybe any story elements into it. Because if that's a part of his character that was established, then okay. But for me, it's like, no, he was always the cool one that could glide. He was always really cool and could glide. And so when I get the version in the movie, I'm like, no, he kind of comes across more as a jerk, not really cool, and he doesn't really glide a whole lot, at least not in the way I remember from the game. So that's at least my experience. Carl Jacobs, I saw someone was thinking of remaking Escape from New York. That idea should be prescribed by law. I don't think you mean prescribed. I think that you should mean that it should be like banned by law. Kelly Zhao, is Thor still a pineapple pizza lover? He has not had it since he last had it. So Hardwick, I submitted a full nomination form a while back. Is there a way to go back and add in extra movies? I've realized that Emilia Perez needs to be in some of the bad worst categories. Yeah, go click the link again. Click the link again, and you should be able to, if you can't edit it, then you should at least be able to submit another nomination, and I'm totally fine with that. Just don't go crazy. Just don't go crazy. River Sci-Fi, Lionsgate does do great steelbooks. I just pre-ordered that new one of the 4K release of Forbidden Kingdom. Very cool. Yeah, I mean, I really enjoy their steelbooks, especially because they have the plastic slipcovers and they're functional. You know, it's not just about the look of it. It's also functional as well. And I think that every studio should do it. If every studio released steelbooks, and two, released them in the vein of Lionsgate, physical media collectors would be very, very happy. Gee saying Cinemark is also letting you bring your own popcorn bucket this week. Yes, I remember hearing something about that. Geek True 64, I may be able to design a Raven sticker for you if I have the time. I do graphic design work on the side. Nice, Geek Truth. That would be awesome. I appreciate it. But yeah, only if you've got the time, because you got your own channel to run, and I do appreciate it. Keely Chow, I have to go. Thanks for a great show. See you later. You're leaving early again. You stay for like 15, 20 minutes, and then you leave me. How dare you? Orange Hat. Oh, now I like Sonic 3, not only because of the respectful director, but because the story was a great story. Sonic was brought low and needed the turmoil of the movie to evolve in his heroism. Yeah, I mean, again, I understand why people enjoy it. I just don't. I think to me, that story that you just described is way more complex than the story actually is. And again, I get it. I think that for me, the first movie I enjoyed because of the director. Because the director showed he had respect for the fans. The fact that he pulled the movie from release to fix the character's design and to take the feedback seriously. And then since then has been doing nothing but really giving a lot of fans things that they've wanted, especially in this most recent movie. I totally respect that. It just does not make a good movie, and it also just does not change the fact that the film is just, it's child fare in many ways. And again, I'm not saying it's bad for you to like that. I mean, there's a lot of child films that I enjoy too. Kiddie movies that I enjoy. But it's, I think, a problem that some people are kind of overstepping or overlooking. But we'll get into it. We'll get into it further. Let's see, Luke Zilla said, thoughts on the domestic predictions from Deadline and Box Office Theory for Captain America 4. I think I've only seen a brief mention of the domestic box office projections from Box Office Theory. I think they're a bit on the high end, but that being said, it's so hard to tell with Disney films these days. I mean, look at Mufasa. Mufasa was not supposed to be doing as well as it currently is doing. The initial projections were quite high for it, and then once we got closer to the release, they finally dropped back down. Once we get those opening weekend numbers, it's just the prospects plummet completely. And now down the line, guess what? The movie's actually been doing a lot better than expected. Has had a huge turnaround, in fact, domestically compared to its opening weekend. So much so that it's within striking distance of a film like Sonic 3. And that's why we're going to talk about some box office stuff. And so you all know, if we're going to talk box office, we got to get ready.
Time to see a real mathematician at work.
All right, so where's there other box office prognosticators out there in the YouTube space? There's only one who does the math. So let's go ahead and just look at our chart, because we love charts here on OMB Reviews, and talking about Sonic the Hedgehog 3, okay? So firstly, it must be stated that, one, the movie has now officially made profit. So hey, kudos where kudos are due. $385.1 million worldwide as of the last update of this chart, which means $1.7 million in net gain profits. Now, there are a couple things that must be noted. First, it is true that the movie got a slow start internationally because it had a delayed release in those international markets. It is also true, though, that since it has released internationally, it's not really making a huge splash in almost any of the typical markets that you would expect a movie like this to do really well in. Now, I'm not saying the movie's doing poor. I'm not saying the movie's going to be a flop because guess what? By definition, it is not. It has now made its money back. And because of its delayed international release, it's going to be officially a chart breaker according to my charting, right? It's going to easily make more than double what it first made in its opening weekend. Or rather, within the first 2 weeks, I should say. It's going to more than double its first 2 weeks total by the end of its run. There are now, though, some problems that seem to be shown at this point. So first, let's go some of the daily numbers here. As I'd mentioned, when it comes to the battle between Mufasa and Sonic 3, Mufasa right now has a very serious edge. For one, it's been winning the daily performances at the domestic box office every day. I mean, there was one point where it was kind of going back and forth where Sonic had the edge, but now Mufasa has almost consistently been able to win out every single weekend, every single even daily number. If we just go back to last weekend, right? Mufasa was the number one movie of the last weekend chart that we had. With $23 million, which was about $2 million advantage on Sonic the Hedgehog. So again, not a huge advantage there. But let's just go into our daily numbers. So the last daily report was that Mufasa had about $1 million advantage up against Sonic 3 on Sunday. On Saturday, Mufasa actually beat out even the new film, Den of Thieves 2, Pantera, $6.6 million to Sonic the Hedgehog's $5.4 million. And then on the Friday numbers, it was Den of Thieves as the new release, clearly winning there. Obviously, you would hope that a brand new movie release would be able to beat out films that have been around for 22 days. But Mufasa did still take the edge over Sonic. Again, not by a large amount of money. But those are the daily numbers. With the weekend numbers, though, you see a little bit more of that difference, right? Almost a $3 million difference. Mufasa, 4 weeks out from initial release, is dropping 39%, whereas Sonic the Hedgehog 3 is dropping 47%. And add to that the fact that Mufasa actually dropped out of more screens and still held on stronger than Sonic did at this point. Now, I am not saying that Sonic is doing bad, for the record. I'm also not saying that Mufasa is anyway a good movie. Some people take my mentioning of successes from Disney or not failing as epically as they could have and probably should be failing as somehow being an endorsement of them or some support of them. When if you look at my review for Mufasa, I gave it a heinous rating over on Criticalist, which is the lowest category of rating that you can give a movie. The movie was abysmal. The movie was an abomination. However, just because a movie is an abomination does not mean that people are not going to go and see it, because that Disney machine, even when it is harmed, can still be a very powerful thing indeed. But why am I bringing this up in comparison to Mufasa? Well, remember how in the opening weekend numbers, Sonic the Hedgehog 3 ate the lunch of Mufasa, where Sonic 3 was able to open to around $60 million, which was actually lower, a lot lower, than the estimates were going into that weekend, right? The prospects of that film were so high, and it didn't live up to that hype. All I'm saying is that Sonic 3 is not living up to the hype that it had going into its release, and is not making nearly as much money as it could be making. It's doing fine. It's doing decently well. But I bring up Mufasa also because remember that massive advantage, right? That $30 million advantage or so that Sonic 3 at one point had in a movie that, again, got the same exact release date 4 weeks ago. Well, guess what? That number has now been cut in half. So at this point in release, now Mufasa is looking at around 190-ish million against Sonic the Hedgehog 3's $204 million, which means there's only about a $14 million difference between the two movies. If this type of trend continues, if Mufasa is able to continue to hold a $2 million advantage or less, a $2 million advantage or more against Sonic every weekend from this point out, each movie's probably got a good, 4 or 5 plus weeks left at the box office. It's not going to be making that kind of money every single weekend in the next 5 weeks, but it's going to still be there making something. If Mufasa is able, though, to edge out Sonic by that amount of money, guess what? There is now a good chance for a film like Mufasa to end with a higher domestic total than that of Sonic 3. So that is indeed a prospect. It wasn't looking like that was going to be the case after the opening, but things have changed quite a bit. Again, that also speaks to how Mufasa is not nearly as big of a flop as we once thought it was going to be, but it also speaks to how Sonic 3 is, again, just not doing as well as it probably should be doing. If the film was doing as well as some people are saying that it is, this movie would be the number one film up against even Den of Thieves 2. This movie would at least easily be beating Mufasa, but that is not actually happening. Going to the global numbers, $385 million. This is some very, again, good numbers for a movie and a franchise that seems to have a pretty narrow ceiling. We go back to the rest of the films in the franchise, right? We go back to the first film, which set the stage, and it came out in 2020, February of 2020, and it was able to get a pretty much full release, even in the midst of COVID not happening too long after, with a lot of theaters shutting down. $302 million worldwide is still pretty good. Many thought, okay, Sonic 2 is going to be where the film really is able to show what kind of audience it has because it's not going to have to worry about the pandemic. While at the same time, pointing out that it was able to do better, but still not able to do really huge numbers. Someone said, well, that's because there was still some pandemic stuff going on, but just you wait. Well, we have waited, and now it's 2024 that the movie gets a release for the third movie of the release. And yes, at $385 million, the film has easily made more than the first film. The film is also on pace to easily be able to outpace the total box office of Sonic the Hedgehog 2. But as of right now, it does not seem to be pacing fast or strong enough for me to think that it's going to do that much higher than Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Right now, I think the way it's pacing, right, with the internationals coming in, fine, but really nothing to write home about, with it really honestly flopping in China. Again, they still have not updated the charting here on thenumbers.com, but the reporting is out there that apparently at the vast number of theaters it was available in China, it only made about $1 million there in its opening. That's a really, really bad number. It's a really, really bad opening there. And you could say, oh, it's never done well in China. It's not really the market for it. Well, it's also not really doing that well in Japan. And again, some people have already started to come out saying, well, it's not really a Japanese product because it's been Americanized or Westernized or whatever it is that you might want to say. And again, I would agree. I think that, and this is why a film like even Super Mario Bros. Movie didn't do as well as some people said it was going to. There are some people that still believe, or still for some reason, don't admit the fact that they were wrong in that they thought that Japan was going to go gaga for Super Mario Bros. And again, it did fine there, but it did about what you would see from a Western movie. It did not do the anime level numbers that can sometimes be seen in that Japanese box office from the homegrown movies that are released directly from Japanese production companies, right? Just does not do the same. It is instead viewed as that Western influence that is oftentimes rejected by some of these more Asian audiences. So it's not doing well there. It's not doing well in China, which means it can't really rely on any country to really beef up that international total. As you all know, when it comes to box office coverage, that much more important number is the domestic. Because if you do much more in your domestic charting, if you do much better in your domestic numbers, you get more return on investment from that than from your internationals. Okay? Which is why, as I mentioned, the film is doing fine, it's doing decent. But then you got to remind yourself, okay, if the film right now is pacing towards maybe between a $450 and $500 million finish, based on the numbers that we have in front of us right now, you then also remember and remind yourself that this movie cost an extra $32 million to make comparatively to the other two movies. The other two films cost $90 million to make, under $100 million, which was already impressive at the time. This movie's costing $30 million or so more. If the movie's going to only make about $50, maybe $100 million extra compared to the other ones, but you're putting in an extra $30 million into your budget, that's the reason why we're not looking at massive profits for this film. And in fact, you could easily argue that the profit margins of the other two films are probably going to end up still being a bit better than this one. And yes, you want to go based off of your total box office and say, well, look, the first movie made 302, second movie added an extra $100 million. Okay, it seems like you're going in the right trajectory. But then you also remind yourself, well, wait a minute, the third movie was projected to do better initially than the Sonic the Hedgehog 2 opening weekend domestically, and then it did not do that. In fact, it fell far beneath the projections after that opening day, where people thought, and myself included, thought, hey, this film right now looks like it could do some huge numbers, but actually came in well underneath. And that's without adjusting for inflation. It wouldn't make that much of a difference for the record, but still, it is a metric nonetheless that we have to look to. Why am I bringing this up, and why do I not think that it reaching $1 billion is all that impressive, right? Well, first off, when you have a film and a franchise like Sonic 3, some people are trying to say, yeah, it's not fair to compare this to the Mario Brothers movie because the Mario Brothers IP is so much bigger than Sega, or so much bigger than Sonic. Okay, I'll grant you that. But when the numbers you're giving are, well, and I don't do video game sales, but essentially it was equivalent to, well, Mario's sales are around like 500 million copies or whatever it might be. And at the same time, or around the same time frame, Sonic's equivalent would be around $150 million, 150 million copies. And like, so clearly there's a huge, separation there between the two. And yes, that would be an accurate statement, right? Comparatively, yes, obviously the Mario Brothers movie is bigger. The Mario Brothers IP is much bigger. But as you all know, IP does not mean everything. And you're still not getting away from the fact that you're still admitting Sonic is a huge IP. It's not as big as Mario, but it's still a huge IP. It's big enough to be needing to and really should be doing better than these numbers that are before us. I mean, again, these are movies that should be making a lot more than what they're making, if indeed we're to believe the hype that surround them from the fans that actually go and see it. So as the movies are able to bring in a lot of fans, some new, some just old school fans that are happy to see the film being respected and the source material being given its justly what it deserves, at least what many people think it justly deserves. You also have to remember that how they make these movies are also turning off some audiences, are also not appealing towards other audiences that otherwise might be available to them. I know that I'm one of those persons. I don't think the movies have been really made all that well for the generic normie audience that is either not kid-centric or is not a fan in some way of a hardcore fan in some way of the games. Obviously, does it reach out to some normies? Yeah, sure. But if you look at this and then compare it to any other franchise that we've seen, it doesn't seem to be there. The last bit of evidence that I will suggest as to why, and again, what's my argument? My argument is that Sonic 3 is not doing as well as some people are saying it is doing. It's doing fine. It's making its money back. It's going to make a fair amount of profit by the time all things are said and done. It's going to have increased the total worldwide box office, in fact, of the franchise, and that's a good thing. But when I see this and I see a PG movie, a family movie, in the midst of many other family movies that have done so much better, right? This is a franchise now. But if you compare this to other animated franchises, even when you compare it to Disney franchises, in fact, I mean, this thing is just nothing in comparison to those. But even if you think, well, it's not fair to compare those, what's really not fair is to compare this up against a rated R franchise. Because rated R franchises are so much more limited in their audience, so much more limited in the people that they can reach out to. And yet, why not bring up the John Wick franchise? John Wick, I think, is the epitome of what you want your franchise to look like. Starts off with an $86 million global worldwide performance. Really not all that much money there. That's not a high number for the first John Wick, and yet many argue that the first John Wick is the best. But what did it do? It went like fire on social media. Sorry, it went like fire on physical media. Availability on, I guess, some streaming platforms at the time, much more limited than what it is today. But still, with what it did, it was able to double its total box office by the second movie. And then after that, it doubled it again. And though it did not double in the fourth movie, it didn't double that one. It still added over $100 million to that one. Domestically, it increased every single time by a pretty large margin. The only difference really, at least in the domestic opening, the domestic total box office, it did not have a huge increase between the third and the fourth movie, but internationally, it was able to do much more. Now, this is also a franchise that, by the way, has made $1 billion. Now, you would say, well, wait a minute, that was in 4 movies and Sonic did it in 3. The point is, though, even if you take out that first movie of only $87 million, you're still talking about a $900+ million franchise on the cusp of $1 billion, right? Just from those 3 movies. And yet, it's a rated R franchise. So, I'm not saying that one is better than the other. I'm not saying that this means that Sonic is bad. But what I am saying is that to try to argue that the money being made by Sonic is huge and it's just, oh, it's massive and it's amazing and it's just the best numbers you've ever seen and oh man, they're really showing Disney, is just not true. It's just not accurate and it just does not reflect the reality of the situation. So I'm not trying to burst anybody's bubbles. I'm not trying to blackpill anybody. Someone was like, oh, the black pill of the day. I'm just being real. I try to be honest with y'all with the numbers. I try to be very clear. I'm the guy that's going to tell you, guess what? Whatever you're hearing about Moana, it's made $1 billion. It's on the cusp of $1 billion right now. It's 10 million away, less than $10 million away. It's made $200 million in profit compared, based off of the reported budget and marketing. Even if you add another $100 million to that cost, by the way, you're still getting $100 million in profits. So doesn't seem like a lot of other people are talking about how successful Moana 2 has been. Wicked as well has done pretty darn well, as in addition to that, right? A lot of people don't seem to be talking about that, right? This film is on the cusp of breaking $700 million and has a good chance of even getting upwards of $750 million by the end of its run as like a high point at this point. But Mufasa, right? Mufasa, even that film I thought was going to be a massive bomb. Well, it turns out it's only $56 million in the red right now. It's about to be in the situation where it could potentially end its run as a chart breaker. Maybe. I still have a lot of doubts about that. It's still got a lot of money it has to make to break even. But there's no denying the movie is doing a lot better down the line than it has any right to, because it's a terrible movie. But it's still there nonetheless. So I'm always going to be honest with you guys. Again, Sonic 3 will absolutely be a much larger grossing movie than anything that Mufasa could ever hope for. Mufasa would be lucky to break even, let alone make a small amount of profit, whereas Sonic 3 is going to easily end its run probably $25, $50+ million in net gain profits. Mufasa's not going to have any of that. But global box office, yeah, Sonic 3 is never going to get close to. And again, that does not mean that Mufasa is a better movie. Far from it. Mufasa is a garbage tier movie. Sonic 3 is a decent movie. I gave it a decent rating on critic lists. Mufasa is a heinous film, but the numbers don't lie. The numbers are clear. And what's clear to me is that Sonic franchise is missing out on some key audience demo that is either just not showing up to this or features parents not bringing their kids into nearly the same level as other films, including even films like Mufasa. May not like hearing it, but again, just trying to be honest. What say you guys? Let's head back into the chat. Let's see. Gee saying, so far the numbers for Brave New World are not looking good for a movie that cost $30 million. Again, yes. Going back to that, I did see an early indication of the projections. I think that the domestic projections are a bit high, personally, but it's still too early to tell. But yeah, even though I think it might be too high projected, it's still incredibly low for a huge, massive budget. That's assuming a $3 million budget and assuming it's not higher. Rob D, 8:07 p.m. saying, but Ode in Japan, when Sonic 3 releases in Japan, it'll do $1 billion in Japan alone. I love whenever I can read sarcasm in chats. So Rob D, kudos to you, good sir. It's reminding me of the Super Mario Brothers discussion all over again. It's like, okay, congratulations to Jeremy for being able to make a prediction that it'd make $1 billion. There was no actual monetary evidence to suggest that it should have made that much money. It did, though, clearly, and that's why I paid the price. And I ate that disgusting pineapple pizza. Ugh. Let's see. Liberty Fella over on Green Machine saying, Happy New Year. Do you think the Magi visited Jesus at his birth or as a toddler? Are our nativity displays wrong? I mean, based off of everything that we have in Scripture, it was after the child had been born. So I think it was as a child. Now, nativity scenes, keep in mind, just like anything that's art, is an artistic representation. It's not trying to be biologically accurate. It's not trying to be scientifically accurate. It's an artistic representation. So I don't really understand the full weight of the question. Abomination hanging out over at Odyssey. What's going on, Abomination? Saying, yeah, that ice storm in New York took trees down from the weight of the ice. Fun times. Jimmy A saying, interesting fact, The Beekeeper just opened in Japan this week and did better than Sonic 3. Not trying to say anything, but the numbers speak for themselves. Jimmy A, thank you for finding that out. That is really interesting. Wow. And again, if the argument is, because you know this is where they're going to go, Jimmy. Well, Sonic is Americanized. Okay. And The Beekeeper isn't? The Beekeeper doesn't represent Western companies and values in any way. And yet it's bringing more people out. It's not saying that Sonic is bad, but is it being overhyped by a lot of people, especially a lot of people in our space? Absolutely. A decent movie that's being portrayed as a most excellent film, when it's just not true. Super Anime Gamer. I went into the movies more in 2024 than any other year, but every time I think about it, my 2024 TBW keeps growing. How did you find out about some of the indies that are nominated this year? For me, it was actually really simple. I watched several weeks in a row the live stream for Film Threat. Friday Film Threat videos Friday Film Threat live streams are your go-to for their reviews, because they review not only the big films coming out, but also all indie films. So I found out about a lot of them. So Strange Darling, for instance, right now my favorite movie of 2024. It's up there, even if it does get knocked out, because there's some other films that I've watched more recently that could potentially risk that number one spot. Strange Darling is definitely going to be in that top 3 for me. And I only found out about it because of the guys over at Film Threat. The film DD, right? Also in that top 10 discussion for me. A movie that really just, again, captures childhood, especially in the early 2000s, so well. Gives you some member berries without just relying on them. So yeah, I would definitely say that when it comes to indies, the best way to find out about them is to watch the Film Threat guys. Guy, when will Thor go to the movies for the first time? He almost went over Christmas, because my nephew, who was featured in one of my box office videos, he did a very quick review of Sonic with my brother, with his uncle. And he really wanted to go see Sonic, and that's why he and my brother went to go see it. And at one point, he had suggested that maybe my son could go with them as well, right? And luckily, it didn't work out that way, because I would have felt really put on the spot, because I want his first time going to an actual theater to be special. He's been to a theater before, but it's been like to a production of a show type of thing. But to an actual like movie theater for that go-to movie-going experience, right? With his old man. I want to make sure that's special. So I don't know if I'm going to wait for a new release, or if I'm going to wait for a good summer movie classic to be brought back, right? You know how they do those classic movie series? There's like $5 favorite series where they show kids films, like the classic kids movies. I imagine it probably will be one of those, but you never know. You never know. Bruce, tagging us, say, hello to you. Mr. Hardwick saying, what do you think of Matt Walsh's take on Sonic 3? I haven't seen it. If it's negative, though, I would probably agree. I think there's a lot of things to be objectively critical of. Laura, Sega. Oh, that was my childhood. That song forever lives in my head. Now, we did not get very far in that game, by the way. We would get a few levels in, and then it would get a little too hard, because we really just played it as a way of just entertaining ourselves, and it was fun to play the first couple of levels because we played them so much that we knew them like the back of our hand. And then the further we got along, the less we knew those levels, and so it was not nearly as fun. Let's see. Guy saying, do you have a drive that can rip 4K Blu-rays? I do. So there's one that's called, it's like an Archgon 4K external drive. So it's a USB 3.0 that you can plug into your computer. So it's an Archgon 4K drive. And then a shout out to, I believe it was Mr. Roy, good sir. He formatted a disc for me to put in my computer. That one may have broken, I think, and then I was able to get another one and then reformat it So I was able to figure that out. I think that's how that worked, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, so I actually got 2 4K cable drives to be able to bring 4K movies onto my Plex server. See, Laura saying, I don't believe anyone who says they enjoyed that Amelia Perez pile of garbage. I mean, I do, only because we know why they enjoyed it. We know why they support it. It's pure politics, unfortunately. Let's see, Hardwick saying, I tried to submit a new form, but it wants me to fill in every category, not just the new ones I want to add. Yeah, I mean, that's just the nature, dude. You got to fill in every category. And again, I have it set that way because there are too many times when people would click the wrong button and submit their form early and then not be able to like undo it or anything like that. If I collected email addresses, you could actually go in and like edit your specific form. But I don't want to do that because I don't want people to have to feel like they have to have a Gmail account, because I know how people feel about that. So it's one of the risks that you take with it. But yeah, so you just have to fill in every category. So I would say, yeah, if you want to fill in your favorite, again, go ahead and fill your favorite. Or if you want to throw some love to another film that you think also is worthy of a nomination. Remember, you're not voting for winners right now. You're just voting for nominees. So I'm much more open to people voting multiple times, because you're not choosing winners here. You're choosing nominees. Let's see. Super Anime Gamer. I haven't seen any of the Sonic movies. I'm just happy someone at Paramount had the sense to cast Keanu as Shadow. You're really not missing much. Caveat Ties. What do you think Captain America Brave New World will make? Oof. I do not like the long-term prediction game because it is so uncertain. I typically trust the early indications that people like box office theory, Sean Robbins, and others are able to give. I think he had the long-term domestic for that film being, what, 250-ish? $300 million domestic. If it holds to that point and it does similar numbers international, then you're talking about a $500 million film. I would not be surprised to see it do, this is a very large range, but that's just, again, we're too early for me to give any sense of anything. I would say between $500 to $800 million worldwide, which is far below anything being close to what it needs to break even. That film will need to make about $1 billion to break even. So even if you're getting to $800 million, you're still far shy of that total. Super. Mufasa has not made profit yet, so hopefully I answered that. Math. That's the stuff, says King Kaner Rumsky. I'm glad that you enjoy that. Lexodendi, what's going on, good sir? Blessed feast of the baptism of our Lord. Abomination saying Sonic 3 just needed musical numbers like lifeless CGI live action animals. No! That's the one thing it did right. Jimmy A. I have a buddy that saw Mufasa, although I forgot to ask him what he thought of it. I imagine he's already forgotten the movie. Luke Zilla saying Sonic 3 will take a hit because it hits digital on January 21st. Nosferatu is also rumored to hit digital that same day. Yeah, I mean, when we say take a hit, I always have to say, well, if that was actually true, that it like does a huge difference, then Wicked would have already fallen off the map. But it's still up there. It's still up there against some of these movies. Let me see if I could pull that back up. Yeah, so Wicked was still only dropped 50%. Right? It was dropped from 320 screens after 8 weeks. It still made $5.1 million this past weekend. So, you know, it's still not too far away. It's only about $1 million off from what Moana 2 is doing. And percentage-wise, it's just about there. So, you know, something hitting digital platforms does not guarantee the film's not going to make money. It kind of reminds me of the opening they did for Five Nights at Freddy's, right? People said, oh man, it's doing day and date release. That's going to suck. And then it's like, no, actually it did really well at the box office. And in fact, probably made more money because of how they released it. Now, not every movie could do that, but if you have the right movie, it's possible to be able to withstand that. Sonic 3, I think there might be a good argument there, because when it comes to younger kids movies, there's a lot of families that either are waiting for it to get released on digital, or people who want to see it again, but don't necessarily want to spend the movie ticket price again. So we'll be following that, right? We'll see just how much. I just don't think it's going to be that much of a drop off, right? Even though I don't think it's doing that well already, Lukezilla, I don't think it's going to have a huge drop off because of that. But we'll see. Fair Sci-Fi. China is falling apart. Their overall box office dropped 23% last year. Yeah, and these Western films are not, really surviving. Guillermo Gage, what's going on, brother? Saying, I just want Mufasa to slow down and not overtake Mufasa domestic. Mufasa. I think you meant you want Mufasa to slow down so it doesn't overtake Sonic's domestic. Yeah, but if the pacing continues where it is, and let's say theoretically that the release on digital of Sonic does slow it down, does slow Sonic down, Sonic's already being slowed down by its own performance, then that would essentially mean, because Disney doesn't really release theirs as early in many cases, many situations. So you could potentially see Mufasa kind of cement its advantage against the movie because of that. And if that advantage continues on for the next few weeks, guess what? Mufasa legs out and ends up being the higher domestic earner up against Sonic 3. That's definitely possible. Jeremy Zakowski, I've been hearing Disney planning to do another live-action Lion King spinoff. Wouldn't surprise me. I don't think they're going to have a whole lot with this movie to really go with, because even though I'm saying this movie is not going to be the biggest flop of the year, keep in mind that's not a good thing. When your movie is not the biggest flop of the year, still means that it's likely a flop. And even if you do break even, barely breaking even on a film that you spent $200+ million on, not even accounting for massive marketing spend, and clearly not a movie that's being enjoyed. Just because people are going to see the film doesn't mean that they're actually enjoying it and liking it and wanting to see it again. So I think it'd be foolish for them to try another spinoff at this point. Rob D. Ariana Grande should buy everyone who went to see Wicked donuts with the film proceeds. I wouldn't want any donut bought by her. Jimmy A. Please stop it with the pineapple pizza slander. Excuse me, sir. Are you a heretic? Get out of here. We'll burn you at the stake. Gage264 actually saw better TV shows than movies this year. Dude, TV shows were rocking this year. I think that's actually a fair assessment, that there were better TV shows than movies, for sure. Keegan Rumsky, everyone knows you can't stop Jason Statham. You can only hope to contain him. Oh my goodness. I can't believe that we're actually getting the Meg 3. Man, oh man. I have to look it up now. When will I be cursed with that release? I don't know why it said the Meg 3 was released in 2018. I guess that's just because of let's see, Warner Brothers Meg franchise. After the original came out in 2018, sequel. Okay, that then I hate IMDb articles so much. I don't think there is an official release date yet for it, but I think it was at least announced. Cthulhu, watch Tom's Best of 1985, and wow, that drives home how trash all movies are now. It's like they are purposely destroying the industry these days. They're still really good films. I think that, again, sometimes that gets overstated, because are there so many better films that came out a long time ago? Yes. Are there still really good movies that come out today? Yes. Two things can be true at once. Guillermo Gage restating that, yeah, it's a very small, about almost $14 million difference. Hardwick saying, Matt Walsh said that Sonic 3 was the movie that broke him as a father. I don't know in what context he would mean that. Rob D. Baby Thor's first movie in theaters will be some animated movie starring a new character, Petey the Pineapple Pizza. I sure hope not. If I have any choice in the matter, it will not happen. Guillermo Gage, 15 million is the North American gap between Sonic 3 and Mufasa. It may seem silly, but you heard Mufasa and it was Mufasa. It was terrible. Oh, it was awful, Guillermo. It was so bad. But again, even though it's a bad movie, we can't deny the fact it's right now pacing to be able to potentially beat out against Sonic 3. Domestic and international, because keep in mind, there's no chance in hell that Sonic 3 is able to match the worldwide total of Mufasa. And I already think, one, that's a clear fact, but also it is sad too, because even though I'm not a fan of Sonic 3, it is a lot better than Mufasa, infinitely better than Mufasa. Abomination saying, people who like Amelia Perez, woo, the peasants don't like this movie, and it's filled with the things that popular movies don't do. How positively marvelous with their monocles and cigarettes holder pipes. No, see, you made them too proper. I think the voice that I did actually suited it a bit better. Guillermo Gage, as a third and final message, Mufasa represents terrible storytelling. Sonic 3 has charm. I don't want crap to be rewarded more so. But that's the thing. If that was the case, then I don't think any of those films, either of those films, should be huge successes. I'm going to be honest. Jimmy A. My prediction is that Captain America Brave New World could have a solid opening weekend, but then fall off like a rock. The Quantumania effect. Final prediction is around $450 to $500 million for me. Dang. Yeah, we'll know a heck of a lot more once we get those opening numbers, that's for sure. Liberty Fellas, Sonic 3 was fun. Hoping Mufasa's success does not encourage Disney to continue live-action remakes. And again, by success, we have to be very careful with our language here, okay? Mufasa has not been successful at this point. It's still a flop. Did it do better than expected after its abysmal opening? Yes. So we could say that that's an individual success. Right? It's like winning a small battle in the massive war that you're still losing. Right? They're still losing this massive war within this individual release because they haven't made their money back yet. But they are a lot closer than they had any right to be. That opening weekend, we thought this was going to be a $100+ million loser. And now it's looking like it might barely lose money or barely break even. Not a good place to be, but a heck of a lot better than where you were. Caveat Ties says here, what's a good independent movie to watch on Tubi or for free somewhere? I'm not as good when it comes to free options. There are other alternative ways to access a lot of really good independent films. I obviously support supporting independent films because they tend to be the ones that actually deserve to be supported and to show these independent creators that, hey, guess what? We will spend money supporting these things. That's why I, went out of my way to go see a film like Dee or a film like Strange Darling. And then when they became available on physical media, we're able to get them. So I actually have still my copies of Dee right here. Again, really, really great independent film. So I can't give you the Tubi recommendation, but what I can say is Dee is a great independent film. Hardwick saying, one of Walsh's criticism was that Keanu Reeves isn't a good voice actor. I don't know if he was good in Sonic 3 or not, but I do know that his accent in Bram Stoker's Dracula was atrocious. Yeah, that's the other thing too, right? In my review on Criticlist for Sonic 3, I said they really did not utilize Keanu Reeves well, and yet I've seen so many people say, oh man, he was a perfect casting for this. I don't get that. I wouldn't say that his voice acting was bad. I just don't think that it was necessarily good. I don't think it made the character. I don't think it really made much of a difference. You could have cast almost any other actor, and voice performance-wise, it really wouldn't have made that much of a difference. Now, you could say, well, it makes the older audiences happy because they recognize that it's Keanu Reeves, and because he's so clearly still Keanu Reeves, that's what makes it awesome. Because it's Keanu Reeves, it's like John Wick's doing the voice. It's like, okay, again, I subjectively get why that's a good thing, but objectively, how does that make a difference? It doesn't. Guillermo Gage, okay, I should have gathered thoughts better. Must rewatch Sonic 3 in theaters and sim for it. No! Icthulu, want to share a facepalm moment. Disney is considering the Phantom Opera with Zegler. Phantom of the Opera, I think, is what you meant by that, with Zegler. Okay, Icthulu, as much as I hate any prospect of a remake of something like the Phantom of the Opera, or anything for that matter, Rachel Zegler is a good singer. I'm not saying she's a good person. I'm not saying that she would work in that role whatsoever, but she could sing it well. You're never going to get the full hate train from me when it comes to most people. Again, I can be fully critical of her because she has a lot of reasons for us to be critical of her. She's a pretty insufferable person. But the one thing that she does have is she has a very good voice. She does have a good voice. When people go off on their hate trains and try to argue that she's a terrible singer, it just makes me cringe every time. Because it's like, look, she could be a despicable person that we shouldn't support, but she can still have a good singing voice, and she does. Oh, man. Geek True 64. I actually liked the first Meg movie as a cheesy shark movie, but Meg 2 was a horrendous. Can't believe it's coming back for 3. Geek True 64. You just said exactly what I said. I thought the first Meg movie was a ton of fun, and I hated the second movie as soon as they announced it, because it should never have been a second movie. And this is the joke with me and Kincaid and Rumsky over on Rumble, because he's obsessed. He loves the Meg. He loves the Meg 2. He's a big fan. Whereas for me, the first movie was fun, stupid fun, and when you do a sequel, it tells you, okay, now you're just trying to get greedy with it. Don't overstep your welcome. You're trying to do too much now. Let's see, Guy saying, the Chinese company that owns Legendary sold its stake. Ooh, I did not know that. That is interesting, because that would mean that the only saving grace that I think it was Dune and Godzilla's the Monsterverse crap. Another films, more films I can't stand. I love Godzilla, but the Monsterverse crap, can't do it. So thankful for Godzilla -1 the last couple of years. So thankful for it. But yes, if that is the case, again, I have not seen that myself, but if that is the case, that then means that whatever the next Monsterverse movie is, no longer has that saving grace, because the only thing that kept those movies financially solvent was that relationship it had with China. But if the Chinese company's gone, that means that they're no longer getting that sweetheart deal of more than 25% of a take. Even though I think that was a bit, ridiculous, because yeah, you might be getting more money because of that Chinese production company, but it also still has the question of, okay, but even though your company's getting the money, how much of that's going to the CCP still, even if you're a Chinese company? It's a valid question. We were never told how much money, one, they were being able to keep, but also two, how much money was still actually going and being funneled into the CCP. They wouldn't have that anymore, so there would be no more excuses for this film's not really being that big financially. Jimmy A. Jason Statham will now do a movie called A Working Man, which looks good. That man never sleeps. Statham bros rise up. Yeah, I mean, it looks interesting. I will give him that. Yeah, he's kind of taking a slightly different route than some of the other older actors that we can think of. The one that immediately comes to mind is Liam Neeson, who just doing 3 or 4 movies every single year, and they're all the same generic thing. At least Jason Statham is doing 1 to 2 maybe movies a year, and they're a little bit more distinguishable. Abomination say $450 million. Captain African American won't break $200 million. Now, I don't agree with that, Abomination. It's going to make well over $200 million. I do think that. Worldwide? Yeah, absolutely. Again, Disney can will a movie to make more than $200 million without doing anything else. King Rebsky saying, do you think the studios might be buying tickets for Mufasa like they did for Captain Marvel? Oh, no. King Rumsky, you're better than this. You're better than this. There was never any evidence that Captain Marvel's tickets were being bought by Disney to any degree that would have made that much of a difference at the box office. More than any other studio would have been doing something similar. Okay? There's no actual evidence of that. Just because Disney is a scumbag corporation does not mean that they will do every single scumbag thing. Man. Abomination. I just saw Free Guy, and I'm convinced that scene at the end with all the power-ups was boosted by Marvel to promote Captain America 4 because it was announced shortly after Free Guy. Maybe. It was a fun movie. Wayward Noodle. Hail chat story. I'm late. Yeah, we're about to wrap things up. Luke Zilla, will you be seeing the new Wolfman this weekend? It's not on my to-watch list. I'm going to be honest. The trailer does not really interest me that much. Forever Sci-Fi. Disney does not put out these live-action movies to barely make money. I wonder if Disney is dragging down the rest of the movie market with them. They could be. Kimberly G, good night to you. We're wrapping things up ourselves. I've been posting the link to the Raven nomination form. I do appreciate those that have been voting. We're up to 45 in the most recent tally. That's after having to have reset it a few times. I think we're now over 100 nomination forms being submitted. So that, I think, is a record for nominations. So I do appreciate y'all for being a part of that. And I'll make sure to post the nomination form at least one more time. So that way everyone has access to it. There it is again. All right, let's see. Laura, probably time for a remake of Phantom. I mean, the last one was done with Gerard Butler. I mean, I wouldn't say it's time-wise due, but if they do a version with better singers, specifically with a Phantom that can actually sing, I might be intrigued. But I think it will suffer the same problem that West Side Story did. I heard, very middling things about West Side Story as a film, but Rachel Zegler could sing. And I think a lot of the other persons they had could also sing. They just weren't in a very good movie that, again, no one was really asking for. So if it's in the right hands, yeah, it could be good. Jimmy A, every time you attack Meg 2, another time you must watch it. No, Jimmy A, no. Cthulhu, she's a wretched actor. There are thousands of better people for the roles she gets. Never forget Shazam 2. Oh, no, again, I'm not saying anything about her acting here. I don't think she's as atrocious as a actor, objectively speaking, as some indicate. I thought, for instance, if I agree, her performance in Shazam 2 was awful. That was a bad performance. But that could be just as much her as it could be the director. Because guess what? A lot of things about Shazam 2 sucked. It was not just her. I would say the director is a big part to play in that. But if you look at her performance in a movie like The Hunger Games, Songbirds and Snakes, she wasn't great. She wasn't awful either. She was okay. Honestly, I think the best way to describe her objectively is she's a middling actress, but a terrific singer. Rob D saying Rachel Zegler's singing will end the war in Ukraine and bring gas back down to $1.49 a gallon. What? Wayward Noodle. I've grown apathetic to Hollywood. I have zero want to go to a theater. I did see Wallace and Gromit: Vengeance for Most Foul. That was wonderful. There's been a lot of good films this year. I'm going to be honest. Kid Ganarowski. Oh, man. I'll bet you a voucher for pineapple pizza. For what? Wait, you think... Heartbreak Ridge, I'm not typically a betting man anymore because that's just not my thing. But yes, Abominations, Abomination, I will take that. So I think, what did you say? You said you don't think it's going to make more than $200 million worldwide? Did I get that correct? More than $200 million worldwide for Captain America. That's what you said. Keep in mind, even Madam Web got to 100 million worldwide as a flop. And that's the Sonyverse, not the Disney machine behind it. And just to verify also, because obviously there are other MCU films that have also been abysmal, even the Marvels did 199.7, roughly $200 million. To say that Captain America, even as bad as it looks, and as abysmal as the box office will be because of its budget, you're going to honestly try to say you think that the Marvels is going to have made more money than the upcoming Captain America movie. I don't see how that's possible in any way. So let me just get verification on that. All right, Hardwick says, I got to see an upcoming summer 2025 movie in an online test screening and thought it was really good. Yeah, I got your message the other day. We do appreciate you reaching out. Jimmy A, have you heard the rumor that Jared Leto's Morbius will show up in the credits of Captain America 4 and say, it's Morbin time. This will help push the movie to $3 billion more. If that was even close to being true, I would be happy. Forever Sci-Fi, what about a remake of The Phantom? Oh, I don't want a remake, though. I really enjoy the Billy Zane movie. I know it was supposed to be like a franchise, and then it just bombed at the box office, never went anywhere, but I would rather go back and rewatch the Billy Zane Phantom. That's just me. Jimmy A, I didn't watch Shazam 2, but the scene where Zegler and the other kids was sus since she's like 400 years old. Say, Drake, I hear you like him. Oh, gosh. Yep. Abomination says the max of 199.9. I take that bet. Yep. I will eat pineapple on pizza on this live stream if Captain America Brave New World does not break $200 million by the end of its run. Because that's what you're saying, right? You're saying you don't think it's going to break $200 million over the entirety of its run. Both, again, worldwide, not just domestic, not just international. I'll take that bet. The question is, what would you do if you lose that bet? Man, worldwide. Madam Web was still funny. I'm surprised the Marvels did that bad too. I mean, I'm not surprised by that. Welcome to Phantom Talk. Seriously. Luke Zilla, I think the new Captain America gets 650 to 700, especially after how Mufasa legged out. Yeah, I mean, Mufasa is a whole different animal, though, right? That's like kids animated fare, and that stuff is easy to make money down the line in many cases. With this one, it's MCU though, and we've seen the MCU has struggled quite a bit, because we really can't count Deadpool and Wolverine in that because it's a Deadpool movie. I mean, it really is like the last remnants of a Fox property, and you add on top of that, it's Ryan Reynolds' film, it's Hugh Jackman's film. They're able to they could have sold that movie to someone, to a blind and deaf person who has no perception of anything else. They have a very powerful dynamic that was very effective. Their marketing was huge for that. That's why it was as successful as it was. But yeah, I definitely would take that bet. Odin, ew, gross pineapple pizza. I mean, I just mean a voucher. What do you mean by that though? Like, what does that actually mean? Abomination saying, if I lose, I donate the average price of a cheese pizza with one topping plus whatever Rumble takes 25%. I don't think Rumble takes anything. I think Rumble's whole shtick is that they don't take any of the cuts. But I could be wrong on that. But I mean, I don't want to, I will happily take a donation when I end up being correct. That's really not, I agree. Geek Truth says, that's a safe bet for Cap. I don't think it will be profitable, but it'll clear $200 million. Exactly. That's my thought. It's like, look, if even the Marvels can get like close to $200 million, and I'm not thinking this movie is going to be any better, but I mean, just by having Captain America as a name, not as a person because he's dead in the franchise, right? But just as a name, on paper, it's going to make more money. It's not going to make a lot of money, and it's not going to be profitable. But man, that's a pretty safe bet, dude. Jimmy A, now I'll start paying people not to see Brave New World. We got to make Pineapple on Pizza happen. Hardwick, Billy Zane was great as the Phantom, but the movie could have been better as an adaptation of the comics, and the MacGuffin wasn't very good. I don't trust current day Hollywood with it, though. Agreed, yeah. And again, yeah, I'm not saying it's a good movie, but it's a nostalgic film that I enjoy quite a bit. It's one of those subjectively love it. Forever Sci-Fi, I want to see Disney make a 1934 Superman movie and Warner Brothers make a Steamboat Willie movie in exchange. Dang, that'd be interesting. Gee, what will you do if it makes $1 billion? Brave New World? It's not going to make $1 billion. I'm just going to put that out there right now. Again, how much it makes is still up in the air, but I'm talking right now, it seems, unless something changes, right now the range is between $500 and $800 million. If it trends upward in any way, I don't see it making $1 billion. It just, there's nothing about it that would indicate that that's going to be the case, that that's going to happen. All right. Anyway, those are going to be the last thoughts that I have for this evening. So please make sure that you're able to get your nominations in. I'll be ending the nomination form and closing it within the next few days. I'll try and get some announcements on that soon, so that way we can get our nominations out. I believe that the Oscar nominations, which we're boycotting, of course, are going to be out by Friday. And so I'll try also to get some nominations out. If the very least, we'll announce them live on next week's show on Monday. I think that might be what most people would rather have, is have them announced live on stream versus having them announced early on just a stream, or sorry, just on like the website or something like that. So we'll probably do that. But we'll probably at least close the voting on Friday or by Friday, so that way Oscar voting doesn't impact it. But we're boycotting that nonsense, okay? Elimination saying, I like safe bets. It's more hilarious when the 0.0001% outcome happens. Oh, I agree. I think that the other people here on the channel would enjoy it if you end up being right. Hardwick, the best movie of the 1990s cycle of 1930s adventure movies, The Phantom, Shadow, etc., is The Rocketeer. That's one virtually perfect. Nice. Jimmy A, Brave New World makes $1 billion, then you should have to shave your beard. No. I've always said that when it comes to my beard, charity is the main thing. So if someone wants to get a charity thing going, like a goal of if we reach X amount to charity, then shave, I would do that. Happily do it for charity. But no, I wouldn't waste my beard on even a safe bet like Brave New World. Wouldn't do it. Jimmy A, good night all, and God bless Forever Sci-Fi. Good night all. Good night to you. And thank y'all very much for watching, for sure. If it gets $2 billion, the eyebrows have to go. If it got to $2 billion, if Brave New World got to $2 billion worldwide, yeah, I mean, I would do my own, because I would never have anyone do it for me, but I would wax my eyebrows on stream. Absolutely. I would wax my eyebrows on stream. And if I didn't shave the night before, I would wax what's on the top of my head too. If they're saying, oh, I'm in for a charity stream, I rep a nonprofit. Ooh, very cool. Very cool. Nitol sounds painful. Yes, that's how confident I am that is just not going to happen. It's definitely not going to be $2 billion, let alone $1 billion. But anyway, that's going to be it for me, everybody. Please make sure you get your votes in. I'll post one more time the link to get your vote, votes waxing with the All-Father. Exactly. Anyway, you guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your evening. I love you guys. Get those votes in for the Ravens. And nominations going live next week. We'll have our official nominations. Blessed feast of the baptism of our Lord. And as always, God bless. Now for a huge special shout out to all of my Chosen of Valhalla members, starting off first with my people on Patreon, Father Luca Illich and Miss Martin Muses. Check out her YouTube channel by the same name, Miss Martin Muses. Also to my Subscribestar people, Matt317. Check out his Twitch channel by the same name, Matt317. And also to the K-Man. Check out his website, xtheboundaries.co. And lastly to my YouTube member, Mr. Roy. Shout out to you, good sir. And if you want your name shouted out at the end of every live stream and video, check out the top link in the video description below where you get access to that. Also, you get access to a plethora of other things. You get your name listed at the end of every live stream and video, like you saw in those names that came up before this video started. And also access to a giveaways channel that I host over on the Discord server where I give away 4Ks, Steelbooks, Blu-rays, all kinds of stuff. So check that out if you're interested in that. Also, I have an exclusive podcast that I hold at least once a month, and it's always a good time, and you get extra bonus content with that also. So if any of that sounds interesting, again, check out that top link in the video description below. You guys are all amazing and beautiful people. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and as always, God bless.